Welcome to another episode of the Limitless Life Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Smith. And if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast. And if you love this podcast and want some more tips and tricks on how to improve yourself, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are a ton of instructional videos there. You can find the links below. But for today, before you go and subscribe, of course, but for today, I have my guest, Jon. Jon is an online fitness and nutrition coach who specializes in helping parents lose weight without cutting out their favorite foods or missing out on family occasions. Jon, first, welcome to the show. And second, I have no idea how to pronounce your last name, so that's why I didn't mention it.
Oh man, thanks for having me. The last name I totally understand because it does look like just a cluster of letters all lumped together, and it's super long and intimidating. If you want me to pronounce it, I can, but my general rule of thumb is the person trying to pronounce it has to try once first, and then I got to correct it. So not to put you on the spot, but I think it'll be fun.
All right. Okay. Vlahogiannakos.
Yeah, it was close. Actually, that's one of the better ones I've heard. It's Vlahogiannakos.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay, cool. Dude, yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Mine's pretty simple. Smith. Single syllable. There's a couple of me on the planet. What can I say? So, my man, how is it that you impact the lives of parents?
That's a great question. That's a great starting question. So the long and short of it is I've been in fitness for some time, but once we had our first child, I recognized that my approach to things had to be different. I mean, also my entire life had changed because I'm not just making decisions for myself anymore. I had a little human to take care of. And then we were pregnant with a second, and I was like, oh, okay, like things are going to be way different now. But also in my years of coaching, I just ended up working with parents, typically people that are over 30, 40, statistically they're going to have kids, or they've tried a bunch of diets in the past. And I've been through a lot of the garbage that has been out there in terms of weight loss supplements and diets and fat and stuff like that. So I kind of, with the help of a mentor, kind of put two and two together. I'm like, you know what? Well, I have a child and one on the way, and I'm in pretty good shape. I understand, the good and the bad and what to avoid and what to do. I can help others do the same, because when you become a parent, when you are a parent, like your entire mindset changes as well. Because again, so if I look back 10 years ago when I was 23, I could spend as much time as I wanted at the gym. I could do whatever I want, stay up as late as I want, sleep in as long as I want, like nothing. I had a girlfriend who was not my wife, but I could do whatever. No little human relying on me, no consequences in that sense. The schedule was mine and how I wanted to make it. Now with two kids, now they're both in extracurriculars. It's like, okay, well, we're balancing out the family schedule where this is my work hours, these are my wife's work hours. Our older son has soccer at this time. He has hockey at this time. My younger one has, swimming at this time, and we had to balance it out. And just when you add on all these other things, usually what happens with your average parent is fitness falls in the back burner. If it's not already a part of their routine, a part of their life and their lifestyle, it's one of the toughest things to start to implement. And that goes hand in hand typically with healthier eating habits, right? Most people, if you ask them, they'll say, I eat pretty well. The most common phrase I think I've ever heard. I eat pretty well, which is usually true. Like most people do eat pretty well. We all know that vegetables are good for us. Fruit is good for us. Proteins are important. But when it comes to parents, especially, if you have picky kids, that makes it tough to make home cooked meals for yourself and everyone. If your kids want chicken fingers and you really don't want chicken fingers, you're kind of shit out of luck, because you're probably going to be making chicken fingers. The stress of the day is different when you have children, typically, because again, you're not just dealing with maybe work or spouse stress. It's, if you have a toddler, they are demanding. They're egotistical and demanding, and they want what they want when they want it. So if you add those things up and you're hungry, because let's say you haven't eaten much all day because you've been stressed out, you've been working, you've been busy, chances are you're not going to sit there and cook a quote unquote healthier meal. You're not going to prepare a chicken breast or prepare a salad. You're probably going to order what's easy, right? I think there's what, 4 or 5 or 6 different takeout apps now. I can't keep up. They're all overpriced. They're all a waste of money, but typically that's what happens. We're hungry, got to feed the family, don't feel like cooking, I have nothing ready, let's order. So for me and working with parents, I want to try to help them not overhaul how they live, but incorporate more of the healthy habits that will make them feel better, give them more energy because they usually feel drained. Most of them want to lose weight, so we help them, eat more protein, eat less processed foods. I love my donuts, but you can't build a diet around donuts. As tasty as that would be, you'd feel very bad very quickly. And just helping them mold, which I think is overlooked, helping them mold the family dynamic and the family lifestyle, getting the kids involved with workouts or with fitness, going for walks more, teaching them about meal prep or protein, the importance of healthier foods. I grew up with just snacks all the time and overindulgence. I mean, my grandmother cooks healthy meals, but we ate a lot. We ate kind of nonstop. Puberty was not kind to me. And then with my parents, like, they didn't really lead healthy lives. So it was kind of just my role models in the health and fitness sphere were non-existent in a way. So I want to help parents change that for their families. Anyone who's been, overweight for a long period of time or struggle with their weight for a long period of time, and they don't want to see their kids go through what they went through. That to me is one of the biggest impacts I can make is changing the generational health of the family.
Nice. I like that you said generational health because I think generational wealth as well.
Yeah.
And I chatted with a couple parents about that. It's like, well, actually Ed Mylett puts it really well, how every person in their family is the one to change the generational health or the generational wealth of the family lineage. And that's it's like you are embodying the one of your family line where you're the one that changed your circumstances, and in doing so you change the trajectory of the future generations. And I think that's freaking bomb, dude. And bomb in a great way. And I'm very, very curious, what are some of the narratives or the opinions or thoughts that parents commonly have, or that have messaged you and said, you know what, Jon, I was struggling with this, and after working with you, I realized I was just making myself a mess. Like they were creating their own messes just off of the narrative. So what kind of cool things or perspectives or shifts have you been able to impart on the folks around you that you work with?
Yeah, I love that. Honestly, the biggest one is the relationship with food. And I pride myself on that. I had a client, as a testimonial she left. It never felt like I was on a diet. And to me, that was one of the greatest reviews I've ever received, because that's what I want for the people I work with. And I want for most people to feel like, if you take your average individual, again, especially parents who have probably tried things in the past, let's say it's the start of spring and they're like, okay, I want to lose weight for the summer. In saying that, most of the time people will shift into like, I need to go on a diet. Going on a diet versus, our diet is what we consume. It's not on a diet. So if you're going on a diet, automatically you're thinking of things you have to remove from your life, whether good or bad. And we could talk about it if you want, but people will lean towards removing breads, starches, alcohol, takeout, which is fine, sugar, which they blanket sugar as sugar, but you and I both know that sugar has its place. But everything that's been labeled bad for their entire lives, right? The influence that they got from media, family, friends, growing up, things like that, that sticks with us for a long time. And when I can help someone remove the labels of this food is good and this food is bad, because if you eat a quote unquote bad food, you feel like a bad person, and all of a sudden what you're doing is wrong. That's the mindset I need people to get away from. Food is more than just fuel. Like, I've been guilty of saying, yeah, food is fuel, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's so much more to it. My grandmother cooks for a small army. Every time we go to her house, there's only 8 people in the house when we go. There's not 15, 20, 30 people, but she cooks enough for that, because also from her, generation, they came to Canada with not a lot. Now they can provide, they want to provide as much as they can. And I get that, but it's like, we have to break, I don't want to call it a curse, but we have to break the habits of parents, influencers, peers, things like that, of your mindset around food will determine your long-term health. Like I'm very much belief in that, because if you constantly see things as good as bad, how are you ever going to enjoy yourself? If you have kids, I've had parents tell me they felt like they couldn't indulge in their kids' birthday cake. There's not one birthday I've ever had for one of my children that I didn't have a nice fat piece of cake. A, I bought it. B, it's usually ice cream cake, which is like my favorite thing in the world. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest one is just improving the relationship with food. And it looks different for different people, but usually it's like, these foods are good, these foods are bad. I can't have this and I have to have this. Just muddying the waters for them a little bit, making a lot of gray and getting comfortable with the gray is hard, but it's so life-changing, because they can go and eat some pizza and not feel bad about it. They can go indulge and not feel bad about it. Or they can, make healthier meals more often and not feel bad about that either, because they don't feel deprived. So that'd probably be that number one thing there.
I like that. That's one thing I've had to address with many clients too. I like saying that the food is for fuel and for fun. It's not just one or the other. And the thing that I think is cool about uh, what we do as coaches is I find that when we have when we have a narrow thought process, or we have a narrow chunk of information, then we are more inclined to have an absolutism frame of mind. So it's either this or that, bad or good, light or dark, blah, 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 blah. But when we get to expand and broaden to a deeper way of thinking rather than just a surface level way of thinking, then people get to think in that gray area where it's not the absolutism anymore. It's actually just a broader perspective, and we get to make more informed decisions in that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I understand. I understand the absolutism too, and why it's appealing. Because as parents, again, if you're stressed out, you don't want to have to think sometimes about, hey, what can I eat, or what has protein in it. It's like the appeal of a meal plan, or a strict meal plan that most people will get put on, is like, this is what I have to eat, which can be helpful for sure, right? And I was more dogmatic about it before. Like, meal plans to me are still not an end all be all solution. They have their time and place for certain people, because it does take away the brain work. It does take away the uncertainty of like, okay, what am I going to eat? But if you have a meal plan, you need either an exit strategy or able to make changes. You can't be locked into. I had someone tell me they had a coach that had them eating fish like every day, and she was like, I hate fish. Like, it's one of those things like, well, I don't want you to do something that you hate, because then you're just going to quit out of frustration. And I get that too, because a fitness journey is not supposed to crush your spirits and crush you. It's supposed to help you. Yes, there will be hard times. Yes, you will get frustrated, and you're going to have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. But if you hate what you're doing all the time, and you hate what you're eating, what are you really doing it for? That's kind of how I look at it too. It's one of those like, yes, I understand black and white can help, but also like, what is the long game here? And this is where a lot of people fall in trouble.
Why is it that you think people fall in trouble there?
Usually it's a lack of education, but it's not their fault, right? If you search the internet, forget about it. Like the Google rabbit hole, a Reddit rabbit hole, a YouTube one. Now we have the TikTok rabbit holes. Like, you'll get every perspective on every subject and leave you even more confused. In the case of, let's say, this woman with this coach, a meal plan is one thing, but an exit strategy from a meal plan is something that, again, they don't get. So if, let's say, people often jump into like summertime shred challenges or whatever, 6-week challenge to get lean, get ripped, lose weight, whatever, that usually comes with a meal plan. But after the 6 weeks, what happens after that? Right? The person facilitating the challenge, again, I'm generalizing, but usually there's no exit strategy. I want to keep these people for 6 weeks, get them great results, and then when it's done, it's done. So those that do the challenge do the meal plan. If they stick to the meal plan after the challenge, they might see some more results. Chances are, once the challenge is over, they've checked out and they're like, oh, I want to break, I want to have a cheat meal or whatever it is. and then they're off their meal plan, which will then start some negative feelings about, well, I'm off plan now, so it's a bad thing. And then they don't want to jump back on the plan, or they have a hard time jumping back on it. So there's no rhyme or reason. It's just, I'm following this or I'm not following this. I'm following this or I'm not following this. There's no, this is my life. I eat for life, not I'm on a meal plan, I'm on a diet, or I'm not. And this, that all or nothing, almost like a bandwagon approach.
That yeah, actually bandwagon approach. I like that. So what would be so on the note of absolutes, what was, I guess we can say, you can take this however you wish, whatever
Sure.
kind of pops up. Because yeah, why not? Because it'd be kind of fun. So what's a narrative that you previously believed to be an absolute, and what was the moment or experience that shifted that?
That's a great question. Ooh, well, that I experienced on my own, or I was influenced to experience? Because I've had bodybuilding coaches too, and I've done the strict meal plan thing until I figured out why it's not necessary. But you're saying like something I just believed without outside influence, or I guess there would
Let's go
always
with
be
that
outside
one.
influence. Yeah,
Yeah, there will always be a little bit of outside influence.
yeah. There's always, that's a tough one. I think one of the biggest ones was probably cardio, and it's the perceived negative impact on muscle. I think was my, where like if you do too much cardio, you're going to lose all your muscle, which to extremes has some validity. If you've never lift and all you do is long distance run, I mean, your body will tell the tale. But I didn't know anything about like concurrent training, and cardio is more than just a weight loss mechanism. It's good for heart health, and if your heart health is improving, then everything else is improving, including your strength training. That was more of the like, that was probably one. I don't know when I figured that one out. Because my brain is just a bunch of muddy waters too. But it's definitely one of those that sticks out of like, yeah, I used to be like, don't do cardio, don't do cardio, don't do cardio, because, and part of it is because I said that because people relied on it too much. So just like get away from that and do this, because most moms over 30, 35 haven't strength trained for long enough, consistently enough to see the results they want. So when they do that, they get frustrated and they just go to cardio. Cardio is mentally easier to rely on. There's no instruction manual. It's like hop on the treadmill and the bike and just do it. So my thing was to get them away from relying on that into strength training more. But I didn't put the two together. Like, you can do both and see the results you want. I don't know if that answer makes any sense, because that felt like tangents upon tangents a little bit.
No, I got you. It would be perspective on walking is good, easy entry, huge benefits. Well, I added huge just from the
No, it's
knowledge I
true.
have.
Yeah.
Huge benefits to heart health. I think it has a huge, for myself, I would say, because we were talking about it before, I would say that the cognitive benefits, the mental benefits to walking is when you maybe listen to something, like the information coming in is really important. But I think when there's a walk and we're just going with the steps, or even counting our steps or counting our breaths with our steps,
Mm-hmm.
we're able to just allow shit just to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And like our brain organizes like, oh, why am I even thinking of that? It's like, it's silly to have in there. I think I truly believe that all the great thinkers of our time, like I'm thinking all the way back to Leonardo da Vinci, and even probably further back than that, but that all of them participated in some form of walking. And I think that created a form of presence. And that is where a lot of really cool ideas come from and problem solving comes from.
Mm-hmm. I love that. We now that the weather's nicer, if anyone who lives in Ontario knows what I'm talking about. I mean, probably you know what I'm talking about too.
Yeah, man.
Sometimes you just don't want to go outside. But like now that the weather's nicer, it's easier to get outside, lower barrier to do it in a sense. But it is like, I think any type of physical activity in the morning really sets the tone for the day. I've noticed that personally. And just I do feel clear. Like the other day, I typically only have like a 30-minute lunch break just between meetings and stuff like that. So usually I'll just eat my lunch and just sit and relax. But the other day I was like, let's just go outside. Like, just take the dog and go for a little mini stroll. It really doesn't take as long as I make it out to be in my head. It's like, oh, I don't want to have to rush back for work. And just that walk, no phone, just me and her prancing along, her doing her thing. I didn't have to think about work. And I think that is tough for some people to do because, again, as we said, life stresses continue to pile on, and disconnecting is another very difficult thing. So you're absolutely right. Like, the cognitive benefits of walking, maybe as coaches we don't talk about them enough, or maybe just what I see on my feed isn't, I don't see it enough, because I mean, I guess we have to market to what people are thinking of and what they want, immediate desire wise. But walking is huge for mental health for sure. And just don't take your phone with you. Like, that's like rule one. There's no phone, no podcast, no music, no, just walk. And maybe some people are uncomfortable with that because, like, you're walking with your thoughts. You probably need it. I know I do, because sometimes it's just it. I also have ADHD, so sometimes my brain is just like, there's 10 things that will pop in and just rotate, but I can't get a clear line of where my thinking is going. But if I go outside and walk, things usually start to figure themselves out. Like, each strand will go in its direction, and I'll be able to follow one. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. It absolutely does. There's I forget where I read it or heard it, probably a podcast, but it's when we're walking or when we're doing something that's kind of mundane that we don't really need to think about, it gives our brain an opportunity, is bilateral stimulation. So when we're walking, we don't need to think hard about each step. And what happens is our left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, the logical and the creative side of the brain, they start working together. And so we actually get to process things more effectively. It's kind of like if I'm thinking, I'll just like have a coin and I'll just play with a coin just so I have a small little distraction just to get like about 15 to 20% clearer in my thoughts and in my presence. It's actually presence that I'm aiming for, because I know that being present results in better thoughts. It's if we're thinking forward or thinking back that I find that, generally speaking, there is more mental difficulties or struggles, or we get bogged down by the overwhelming accumulation of just thing on thing on thing on thing. This is a fun one too. And it's a personal one, so I hope you're cool with sharing.
Sure.
But let's say when you, or actually, no, this is a cool one. This is a better way of putting it. What are your day-to-day intrusive thoughts, and how do you manage them?
That's an interesting one. I don't know what I consider an intrusive thought versus a non-intrusive thought.
I can define them.
Yeah, I mean, that would give me a little bit more clarity. I can think of something, but I want to make sure we're on the same track here.
Sweet. If I were to categorize them, I would put them into the categories of functioning opinion and non-functioning opinion. A functioning opinion is an opinion that helps us. A non-functioning opinion is an opinion that harms us. I am not good enough. I suck. I'm dumb. Functioning opinion. I am charismatic. I am personable. I am relationships driven. And it could be different descriptors for each one. But I kind of think of a non-functioning opinion as one of those opinions that we just tell ourselves to beat ourselves down and hold ourselves back.
Those are the intrusive ones? Yeah. Shit. Yeah, there's too many of them. It depends on the day. It depends on how life is going. Like, I've had moments like questioning my abilities as a father lately, just because I haven't dealt with stress well. Those ones are tough. And I mean, my wife's amazing, right? She'll always reassure me. But it's one of those, and people that I work with that are very high driven, that want, we'll say, the best for themselves, are also the hardest on themselves. I categorize myself that 100%, right? I've always, over the years, life has never been better for me and my family as it is right now. But over the last 3 years, and even before, like, there's things I've still wanted to see happen that didn't, and I beat myself up for it. And I'm getting away from the question a little bit, but I will bring it back. And oftentimes I live too much in the, maybe it's too much in the now, but too much in the past of like what could have happened, what I should be doing, or what should happen right now versus like zooming out. And I had a good friend of it remind me a few times because he's seen it zoom out and be like, this is how far I've already come. So clearly I'm not bad at what I do. I don't suck at this. And those things that we tell ourselves, imposter syndrome to me falls right there. It's one of those like, do I know what I'm doing? Does pop in my head for sure. Some Monday mornings before I open up my check-ins, I'm like, do I want to open up these check-ins, right? That intrusive thought of like, what if everyone's pissed? What if I have to put out fires? What if, no one's happy? It's irrational as all hell, but it happens. That one for sure. Not weekly, but once a month, I'd say. Um, whether it's totally on me or just, again, everything else in life piles on, sometimes you just feel like, what am I really doing right now? That'd probably be the number one intrusive thought of imposter syndrome. Like, am I good at what I do? Do I deserve to be here? Why aren't I ahead is another one, right? Like if anyone who's highly driven and wants the best, they'll move the goalposts wider and wider. So they're never satisfied. I have a few clients like this, and I get it. We resonate a lot with each other because like I've hit milestones, but I'm like, well, I haven't hit this milestone. What about this? Like it's that constant fine line between wanting more and also being satisfied with where you're at. That's probably another one. Or maybe they're all the same one. You tell me, because I'm just going into directions here.
No, I like it. I like how you're just going with your thought process. I can see how they're connecting.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. But I love that question. Why am I not ahead? I think that's a really good. I think if I'm probably gonna steal that, I'm gonna probably
Yeah.
I'm gonna ponder it today because I think that and I'm looking at it objectively. So I'm asking myself from a third person point of view, why am I not ahead? And being ruthlessly honest with myself. And then I think you probably unclipped a couple things there, man. Thank you for that. That's a good one. Shit.
Glad my rambling helped.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's great. Uh, oh man. Okay. Nope. Focus here. You're focusing here. That's just me talking to myself on that one. That's beautiful though. Okay, so well, one thing, the part where you're like the intrusive thoughts when you go for check-ins, I
Mm-hmm.
100% resonate with that. And you know what? It's hearing, I've never heard someone else say it. And I imagine, oh yeah, most people probably say it, but hearing someone else say it is kind of cool because it's almost like when you hear that someone else experiences the same thing, it almost seems like there is a weight lifted and you have permission to feel that, but understand that it's okay. Because there's been many a times, and I'm sure you've experienced it, where I've gone through a check-in and I crushed it in less time than normal. And then I think back, I'm like, why was I being such a baby?
Yep. Yep.
So funny, man.
We build these things up in our heads, right? And I don't know where that comes from, but there's a lot of things of like maybe it's an anxiety thing or we're creating monsters in our head that don't exist. But it's like you just got to do the thing. The more you do the thing, the easier the thing gets. But that little monster it'll still be there because it usually never goes away.
Yeah, there's always a lingering
Yeah. Oh yeah.
voice, or how does it go? The voice never goes away, or the voice of criticism never goes away, but you don't have to feed it.
Ooh, I like that.
Honestly, I think I just came up with that one. Or
Ooh.
it's kind of inspired by the idea of I love this story where each of us have two wolves within us, and
Mm-hmm.
there's I like to call it the role model or the rival, and we are either going to feed one or the other, and the one that is stronger is the one that we feed. And to make the other weaker, because we always think of how to be stronger, we never think of how to make things simpler or weaker.
Hmm.
And I think we starve the rival. We starve that one wolf that is just trying to pull us into our lesser self. But when we feed the wolf that is powerful, strong, all those characteristics that we look up to, then that one gets stronger. And that's just through taking the action.
Mm-hmm.
The action is the accumulation of data proving our weaker selves wrong.
I love that. I love that a lot. Could we talk about that a little bit too? Just because
Yeah.
I find
Yeah.
like, again, especially because I work mostly with moms, so it applies, but also dads, the stories that we tell ourselves of why we can't, usually it's why we can't do things. The story I've always told myself, and I made a post about it, and my coach at the time told me that that was speaking about myself essentially, which I come to realize that some of the posts I make do are about me. I can be my own avatar here when it comes to coaching. Um, but if you tell yourself I can never stay on track on weekends, you're basically going to keep fulfilling that story until it becomes a truth, right? But why is that story there? The story is there because you've struggled to stay on track on weekends. So then you resort to just telling yourself, well, it's almost like an easy out. Oh, I can't stay on track on weekends. So then you put no expectation on yourself to do so. So when you don't feel bad because it's become this new norm. But the norm didn't start out of the blue. It started because you kept telling yourself the same story over and over again. Well, I just can't seem to lose weight, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. Like it's always becomes these negative stories. Human condition is funny because we love the negative. I think it's a survival thing, and that's what I've been told from one of my clients as well. It's we have to focus on it to survive. That's where we come from. But here in 2023, like it really doesn't help. It makes life so much harder than it has to be when it's like, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. And just why is everything so hard? I'm like, well, what are you doing well? Why don't we lean into that a little bit more? What is going well right now? Oh, you didn't miss a workout. Awesome. You know, more protein today. Sweet. Like celebrate the small stuff. Stop killing yourself about the not so good stuff because we can always work on that. But I think it's important, like you said, starving the rival is the version of ourselves that we beat ourselves up on of like, why am I not good enough or why can't I do this? The more negative self-talk you have, the worse you're going to feel. And the harder the journey is going to be and the less likely I think you're going to reach the end goal, whatever it looks like for you.
Absolutely. There is when it comes to the narratives of a cannot or can't, uh, and I'm really picky. I can understand it gets kind of annoying with some people, and it's annoying to myself as well because it's like, oh, so nitpicky. But when the words that we speak to ourselves may be small in the moment, but they accumulate over time. So when some folks always say, I can't do this, I can't do that, I do catch people. I'm like, well, is it that you can't or that you just won't? And I think the reasoning behind why I think, or the reasoning behind the adjustment or the reframe is so that people can find themselves in power of their behavior and their autonomy rather than depending on the external circumstances. Oh, I can't do that because it's raining. I can't do that because I have kids. I can't do that. No, it's because you won't. You won't do that because it's raining. You won't do that because you have kids. Uh, and I think that that's such a powerful, just like shift. Any shift. Actually, this is the way of thinking it. Any shift to even the simplest sentence that can help empower a person perpetuates progress
Mm-hmm.
from the present into the future. And I like the idea of where focus goes, energy flows. And we envision yesterday so much more clearer than we envision tomorrow because we've already experienced yesterday, right? And I think this is kind of tangenty now, but when we envision the future, technically we've already experienced it in our mind. Our bodies just haven't caught up to what we're envisioning. And I think having that as a frame of, oh, I've already seen it, and having parameters, and I like thinking, I wrote it down here, parameters prevent perpetuating past pain into the present. So if we set ourselves up, I like alliterations. I'm like,
Nice. Me
all
too.
it's just for me to remember, man.
It's awesome.
But when we have those parameters of, oh, I just said that thing that is not empowering me, let's shift it immediately. And then that way we can just focus on now and going forward. Uh, and the stories, what's the story behind the mission as to why you do it? What's your mission, I suppose? What is it that you want to accomplish? And what's the story that you tell yourself to keep focused?
Oh man. The mission is, it'll sound corny, but it's to help as many parents change the trajectory of their family's health and wellness. The more I matured, let's say, and once I had kids, that kind of changes how you look at life. Like especially since I have two boys, I want to make sure that they don't go through what I went through. Puberty was not kind to me. It's not my fault. I didn't know any better at 12, 13, 14 years old. So I want to make sure that they don't go through, getting picked on, feeling self-conscious, not being comfortable in their own skin. I played hockey for years and I was never comfortable in the change room ever, because I didn't want to take my shirt off. It was one of those things that I would always have my back to everyone. I wouldn't go in the showers. It was very uncomfortable. So I loved the game. It was the post game that I absolutely hated because it was very uncomfortable for me. So if my two boys never have to go through that, that's huge for me. I want to make sure that they have a different outlook on life. They have better opportunities. I often look back, not often, but from time to time, I'll look back and I'm like, what if I was in better shape when I was playing minor hockey, 15, 16, 17, 18? Would I have had different opportunities moving forward into, more of a hockey career? I mean, NHL, no, because the chances are like winning the lottery, which is fine. But it's helping parents kind of change that for their kids, because they want to be around for their kids long term. My mom passed away a couple of years ago, but even in like before that, from 2019 to 2021, she had a ton of hip problems and she was only early 50s. And we had a young son, like my son Nico was 2, 3, and 4 years old, and she couldn't really get up off the ground. Like she can get on the ground was uncomfortable, getting up off the ground to play with him was uncomfortable. I've seen it with my mother-in-law. My father-in-law passed away at a younger age. Like I keep seeing it around me, and I need to make sure that that's not what my life looks like. And I want to help other parents prevent that as well. One of my clients, what did she say? She never wants her kids to take care of her. And I was like, hell yeah. Like to me, that's big. And it's so hard because you have to break habits, and breaking them is tough. And if you've been conditioned by your mother or your father for so many years, how do you break that without the hard work, the shit work, the deep stuff that you have to change your behavior to help your kids change their behavior? And if you have older kids, the pushback you get from, we're not having pizza on Friday nights, we're having this instead. Like it's the things that'll add up that are tough, but and kids won't understand the long-term effects of what's going on, but you will. Like, and that's where working with parents is incredibly helpful. I had a text this morning, actually, no lie, from one of my clients who's on vacation with her family. She brought her TRX because they're in a hotel room, and her daughter straight up told her, like, I love that you work out. I love that you do this for me. And she was like, what do you mean? She's like, because when you work out, you're stronger and you have more energy and you're going to be around with us longer. And I was like, that's incredible. Like that is like, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, because that's the type of impact I want to have on families. And I made sure I sent her a video back to tell your daughter, like, your daughter's amazing too. But that to me is my long-winded, messy answer of why I do this, and what I want to see for people long term.
Honestly, I think that was an awesome answer. Right when you said that, I felt it like in my heart, man. I was like, oh my gosh. I think it's crazy because, I love that she never wants her kids to take care of her. I freaking love that. And that is such a powerful, that is an empowering statement to make. And oh man, like I'm actually like big time feeling that one, because it's beautiful, especially if your kid is recognizing the work, and that's pretty darn cool. Like, man, okay, I'm trying to think of like another question that I can go off the fly on that one, but that was really sweet. Is okay, so let's say, yeah, so obviously working out to take care of kids, Do you find that if an individual who is a parent is struggling to find that intention and purpose behind the activity, do you think they can automatically default to taking or thinking I have to do this for my kids? Or do you think there could always be a secondary, or what kind of the thought process I'm coming up or kind of thinking of is what are the stories or the intentions to help drive a parent to overcome that resistance to take care of their health in order to be there longer, some along those lines.
Yeah, I apologize for the furnace in the background.
I
I
can hear
mean,
anything.
it's parents want to do things for their kids. Like I'm the same, but my immediate desire is for me, right? Because I think we all still need to take care of ourselves. And maybe a lot of more moms would probably disagree. It's okay to be selfish because when you are selfish with your health and fitness, everyone else around you benefits. So it's really not a selfish act. So I think like getting parents to start working out, you could say, yeah, do it for your kids, but I think they won't recognize that right away. And it's not that immediate gratification that they'll get, right? They'll see the effects of it over time, but to get some quick wins, let's say, it's, you'll have less pain going up and down the stairs or getting up and down off the ground with your babies or toddlers, like, because that's big too. If you're heavier and you have bad knees or ankles, like it does make life harder in general. Um, the cardiovascular abilities to walk up and down the stairs without huffing and puffing, I've heard that one quite a few times. Right? It's things like that. Like when you're feeling stronger and you're feeling fitter, the immediate benefits from that maybe don't show up on the scale or show up on your clothes, but you feel better. When you feel better, you have a better mood. You eat better, which makes you feel better as well, which usually makes you parent a little bit better, which you're less stressed, you're less, reactive on your kids and things like that. But to say to them, hey, make sure you get this workout in because you got to do it for your kids. It's not going to connect. It's like once they start feeling the effects of it and seeing how it impacts their kids, then it's like, okay, it's validating that all this work wasn't for nothing, in a sense of like, my kids will benefit from this. They're working out with me. This is awesome. This feels good. I'm leaving an impact on them. That's the deeper rooted stuff that it's hard to connect with until they do the work. To get them to do the work, it's more the immediate, like, what are you going to feel from this? How do you want to feel, after at the end of the week, at the end of the weekend, like whatever it might be there, I think is be more impactful in the short term versus, doing it for your kids.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I think I don't like it when people, and it's just general where people think selfishness is bad. They have a negative connotation to it. I think, in my opinion, that selfishness is a form of kindness, and it's a form of being kind to the self. And then when you're kind to the self, it perpetuates outwards, and everyone else, kids, family members, friends, colleagues, employees, all benefit. And through the actions taken in that selfishness, it helps inspire and encourage others, including children, to follow in suit because we see it first and then we mimic it. It's harder for us to create when we find ourselves trying to recreate the wheel, or in what we perceive to be recreating the wheel, then it's harder to get going. But I think, or it's harder to get going, but once we get going, then it kind of like perpetuates outwards. And then everyone else is like, oh, can I go for a walk with you? Or, there's actually been one client of mine, Denise, she, she working out. She's awesome working out. And her kids started counting reps for her. And I thought that was really cool, where like getting the kid involved and being like, "Oh yeah, you're doing so good. You have 5 more reps,"
Yeah.
stuff like that. I love that kind of stuff, and I think it's beautiful and encouraging to be able to. Well, I think that's something that's really huge. If you think of most groups, sports teams, you can say military, you can say heavier boot camps kind of thing, but there is a bonding process when we go through physical activities together. There's always going to be, in my mind, there's always going to be a cap to what can be fulfilled or can be achieved without the solo. We're always built up based off of the people that we're inspired by. And if we're in a community, in a group of individuals that are progressing towards a similar goal or a similar ambition, then the bonds become stronger because we're going through those triumphs and tribulations together rather than solo. And that, if I were to think of life as a video game and you had like your NPC friend come in, that's like plus 20 XP in being, or plus 20 power in whatever that particular endeavor is. People definitely increase power output or their overall output if they have a collaborative kind of component. But I think if you have a kid there, or if you're bringing it, making it like a family kind of thing, then everyone, although there is a form of suffering, there is definitely something that connects people on a deeper level, that sitting down and having someone on a tablet and someone watching Netflix and they're on two different sides of the room. Sure, they're together, but they're not together.
Oh, that last, I can go off on the last point about relationships, but no, with the kids and the workouts, like I had struggled with that a lot in the beginning. Because I like my workout time was my alone time. I'd blast music, I go heavy, and just I need to be in my zone. So that was a shift for me, and maybe some parents find that too. But when COVID happened and we were stuck at home, I was lucky. My brother, we lived in with my mom at the time in the same house. He brought home a bench and some dumbbells. So I was like, cool. Like I had to work out from home. And then when it was summertime, like I brought that stuff outside. So not that my son would necessarily work out with me during that, but like he'd go around and play in the backyard. But I'd be working out on the deck or whatever. So like we'd be in the same vicinity. And that's happening now too with both of them. My older one is 6, younger one is 2 and a bit. They'll play around here in the basement, basketball and hockey and do whatever in the gym behind me. Last workout, like they just sat and watched. Workout before that, they each grabbed a dumbbell. Like they wanted to do some stuff, right? So like they're as long as they're seeing me do it, I think that's one of the lowest barrier steps. Like the kids don't have to do the workout with you. They don't have to be there the entire time. But if you're in the same room and it's happening, you're modeling the behavior that they're going to want to do. Kids are sponges. Like anyone who has kids knows, like if you tell them to do something, they're not going to do it more times than not, especially at a certain age. If you ask them for help to do something, they're jumping. Can you help me do this? They're jumping at the chance. Kids are funny like that. If you learn just how to work them a little bit, but if you even if you don't say anything, Daddy's going to go work out now. Do you want to come downstairs? Yeah, cool. And they'll just do their own thing, but they'll know what I'm doing. And my 2-year-old, who never really experienced me like lifting heavy, I would like grunt during a squat, and after he'd be like, "Are you okay, Daddy?" And I'm like, "I'm good. I'm just Daddy's lifting weights. It's heavy." So he's just soaking it in. He doesn't know what any of it means yet. But if I can imprint that on him, Daddy's strong. I lift weights. Even my wife is down here. Like we're active. We're trying to create an active family life. They love going on family walks because we just made it part of the routine. When the weather's nice after dinner, we go for just a stroll. We all can use the fresh air. It also helps conk the kids out for bedtime. Like it's just one of those things that, yeah, I love TV as much as the next person, but having them sit there doesn't. I'm not anti-TV or parents who use tablets and stuff, but it doesn't help. I think it definitely. I've noticed behavior changes in my 6-year-old when he does watch it versus when he doesn't. He needs to expend the energy. He has so much energy pent up. So yeah, I like it. The bonding makes me think of like dry land hockey training when me and my teammates would all just suffer, but we suffer together. So it's a good thing for us together. So yeah, working out with my wife now in the mornings, like that definitely helps our relationship, the kids to see it. Parents I know will have some resistance to the kids being in the room, or they're scared of them getting hurt. You'll be fine. And then for parents who are like, you know what, I need to get away from my family to work out, do it. Like, again, do that. Like whatever's going to get you to do it. I understand wanting to leave the house. I'm in this house all day, every day. I get it. I had a gym membership It was just easier to pop into my basement and do it anyways. But yeah, if you have to leave the house to go get it done and you don't want your kids with you, that doesn't make you a bad parent. It doesn't. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's a positive, selfish behavior. Just to bring it back just to that, because it's true. Okay, you'll feel bad because you leave your kids with someone else or at the childcare, but you working out is going to be great for your mental health, great for your physical health, which is going to impact your kids.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna leave it at that one. Yeah.
Going back to the stories. Oh man, I like how we're looping around. We're in a freaking network of neurons, I suppose. Uh, maybe not just like from a physical standpoint, but I guess as Jon, the character, the person that is in front of me right now, what are some stories you hope, and how many kiddos do you got?
Two.
Two, three, two?
Yeah.
What are some stories you hope, because it's going to come down to, it's not a guarantee, but what are some stories that you hope your kiddos will adopt through your behaviors, watching you through your behaviors?
I like that. The word leader pops in my head first. It always makes you sound like a narcissist when I talk like this, but I consider myself a leader. You know, any workplace I've been to, people would look up to me, ask me questions. You know, I direct. I have no problem with that. My wife and I talked about this morning of how I have a presence that just people gravitate towards, which is cool. I'm like, okay, well, I see that, and then I see my 6-year-old, and he follows what other kids do a little more than I'd like. And I wasn't a leader my entire life. It took me some time. I have had moments of just being shy and quiet in the background. I'm not a boisterous person all the time. So I might come off like that on social media sometimes. But I want my boys to be leaders, and that comes with confidence in themselves. It's really what it comes down to. That's something that is probably one of the hardest things to develop, is believing in your own abilities, regardless of the situation. And this may be a bit off, even more off topic, but how to treat a woman. Like, I would argue, well, I have no reference, but my wife and I's relationship is ironclad, and it's only gotten better. We've been together for 16 years. It's a long time. We've been married for, let me get this number right, six. Good thing she won't listen to this. But we were constantly communicating. We'll kiss in front of our kids, which maybe people are uncomfortable with, and my boys will be like, "Oh, why are you doing that?" But like, we're showing them that we love each other, and we talk to each other. We don't yell at each other. We laugh. We giggle a lot. We'll sit next to each other. We'll hold hands on walks. So like, modeling what a strong relationship looks like. And again, they're both really, really young, but I feel like especially the 6-year-old, we'll start to see it more and more. He supposedly has a girlfriend, so it's like, well, great. Here's some tips. You know what I mean? But I think, yeah, that's probably the two that pop out, is just self-confidence for sure, and not beating yourself up, because my 6-year-old is a mini version of me a little bit, and he's super hard on himself. If he gets something wrong, he gets pretty upset. My toddlers are happy-go-lucky for the most part until they don't get their way. So we'll see. But he's loud, and he wants what he wants to. So, which is fine for now.
Nice. How do you practice being a leader for your family?
I don't want to say not asking questions, but it's more like, this is what we're doing, in a sense. Like, my wife's full-time job has her bogged down mentally. I mean, so does mine, but I'm okay taking the reins of like, this is what we're having for dinners this week, or just taking the initiative to cook, or taking the initiative to clean, and then asking my 6-year-old to help me do certain things, and like, this is why we're doing it, or this is why we're doing the laundry. And I think just things like that, just showing them, I want to say it's like just good habits around the house is the only way really I can take it. Yeah, I don't really, that's a tough question. I don't know how else to answer that one. It's something I don't consciously think about, right? From day to day, you just kind of do the things. I haven't thought about how I practice to show that. That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah, I really So far, I've been having a lot of fun with the podcast and asking questions,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, understanding or trying to think. I think a theme with a solid chunk of my questions, at least, is the meaning behind the mundane. So, what's the reason behind the mind, not mindless, but what's the mindful decision behind the mindless actions?
Mm-hmm.
And by mindless, I mean not like not thinking. I mean just routine where when we wake up in the morning, I don't know about other people, but I'm like still half asleep when I go to the bathroom. It takes a little bit of a warm up session, but I know that my morning is like doom doom doom, and I'm not really thinking much about it. So I think when we get to think about what we do and why we do it on the regular,
Mm-hmm.
then we can actually then we can pivot in smaller micro adjustments. It's kind of like I forget what, like a reference would be like an airplane, where an airplane is just making those micro adjustments, but if it was off by 5 degrees to the right, it's going to go on the other side of the freaking planet.
It's one of the wildest stats I've ever heard. Yeah, I remember
It's
hearing that.
it's craziness. And I think human behavior is very similar. When we go to the day to day, we may believe that we are stagnant in the day, but the universe and us along with it is always in a state of motion. It's always going forward, whether we like it or not. And if we're not in a state of motion, then we're probably dead. And yeah, that's not fun.
No, we don't want to be there.
Yeah, that's freaking sweet. Uh, what else was I gonna? There's another thought that I had that popped up there. But yeah, man, you have a lot of good ones. I'm trying to think of another parent one too, just
Well,
because I have a.
if you got nothing, I got something about self awareness because I think it's
Oh, please
important.
do.
Where
Yes.
I think most again from this, if you add up all the stresses of life, most people run on autopilot. So if you're running on autopilot, your habits are harder to break because you're not actively thinking of breaking them. But then when it comes time, let's say to you want to drop some body fat and start working out more and have more energy and things like that, you have to be aware of your habits. Like I know when my kids go to bed around 9 o'clock is when I can finally settle down. Like I want a snack. I know that about myself. It's a habit I've created. I'm okay with it. I don't see it as good or bad. It is. The good or bad becomes, is that snack a planned one? Is it overconsumption? Am I just binging? Am I eating just to eat? So is the awareness of like, I recognize that. Whereas some people were like, oh my God, I can't stop snacking after the kids go to bed. I think it's that story they tell themselves, right? So it's like being aware of like, why are you hungry? And just maybe reverse engineer the day. Did you eat breakfast? Did you eat lunch? How big? Did you have dinner? How big? Was there protein? Have you exercised today? Did you get sleep? How much water did you get? Like there's all these things. And as I list them, and some people listening to this might be like, holy shit, like that's a lot of stuff to keep track of. It is, right? But you don't have to be 100% on point with every single thing every single day. Something I've talked to my clients about more recently was the dials of fitness, right? You turn dials up, you turn dials down, you don't flip a switch on and off. And we've worked on the big six, which is protein intake, calorie intake, water, movement, sleep, and stress management. With parents, those last two sometimes are completely out of whack. The sleep one for anyone with new kids, newborns, and they're not sleeping, that dial is going to be down for a while. And I get it, and it's fine. But the reason the dials is most people are like, I'm either on a diet or I'm off a diet. I'm either working out or I'm not. I'm on or I'm off. Where the dial's like, you know what? I turned up today. I turned the dials all the way up. And if you had an overindulgent weekend, well, the calorie dial, wasn't on point as much. Let's turn it down. I didn't have enough protein today. That's turned down. So it's like, how many dials can you turn up more consistently? Because you're not going to be perfect, and it's not all or nothing. It's those little micro adjustments, like you said, of like, hey, today I was 70% better than yesterday. It was a bad day. I just didn't have any protein. I overate donuts, whatever it might be. But the micro adjustments of like, being 70 to 80% on point for most of the time, because you'll have your days, that's down the road, it's going to be huge for you.
I think I have probably the most important question of this whole chat, my man. Way deeper than anything else. It might be overwhelming, but I have noticed one, that you have a donut on your plate in the background. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it as well. You mentioned donuts a couple times, and I've also seen a couple posts with your donuts. So the toughest question of the day is, what's your favorite donut, my man?
I knew you were gonna ask that. I can't pick one. So there's so many things, and maybe I need to just write this out. But there's so many qualifications. Like if people have said like what's the best cookie, it's kind of the same. Like is it store bought? Is it homemade? And what flavor is it? So like with donuts, is it flavor of donut? Is it where am I getting it from? Right? Because there's so many things. I think, not to sound completely basic as hell, but like you can't go wrong with a sprinkles donut. You just can't. If anyone out there is at a bad sprinkles donut, I want to know about it because I've never run into a bad one. That I've had some not so great donuts. And anything, I want to say anything cream filled is a win in my books. Like you that's delicious.
Nice.
We're not talking about calorie friendly either. We're just,
Yeah.
that's what the best donut is. I'm going to indulge.
Yeah. We're not gonna be like, oh yeah, let's go with like the mindful donut. No, well, it's still mindful, I suppose, because it's like thinking of it.
Yeah.
Man, you know what? I would agree with that. It's kind of like if you go to an ice cream store and they mess up vanilla and chocolate. How can you mess up vanilla and chocolate? If you mess up a sprinkled donut, you're messed up.
Yeah, it's like eggs. No matter how bad they might look, you can't really mess up eggs. One of my parents told me that in a restaurant one time. They're like, the eggs are good, and like you can't mess up eggs. I'm like, okay, that's a fair point. I get that now.
That's awesome. Uh, have you had to change any? I guess because kind of a cool question. Have you had to change any narratives around the donut intake that have allowed you the permission to enjoy it more?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I used to think they were bad, like most people, like donuts were bad, and all those treats were bad, and I can only have them on cheat days or cheat meals and things like that. And that created a real like overconsumption attitude, because if it's a cheat meal and I can eat whatever I want, I'm going to have as many as I want in that sense. There's different seasons of life. Like right now I'm in a fat loss season. So like donut consumption's low because I have calories and protein to hit. So if I have, let's say if I want to have a 300 or 400 calorie donut, like that takes away a good chunk of calories from my day, which could leave, which is delicious, but it could leave me hungry, right? And it could leave me feeling craving more, right? You also have those habits involved. I used to be huge into like the if it fits or macros mentality, which is like you can have anything you want as long as it fits, which to a point can work, but it can get to a point where it's like, well, I want to have 2 donuts. How can I make it work with the numbers? And then you disregard how full you feeling, your digestion, your energy levels, your hunger levels, things like that, just to say, oh, I had 2 donuts. Right now I'm more in a phase 2 is in life in general, not just this season, but I'm going to have days where I indulge, and I'm okay with that. And I think that's where most people slip up too, is if they don't set the intention. If I intend, like there's International Donut Day, there's no way I'm not getting some donuts on donut. Like that's just, I had my car breakdown one year, and my mom had to pick me up, but then I dropped her off at work so I could take the car to go pick up the donuts that I ordered for Donut Day. Like there's days I don't mess around, and that's one of them. So it's like if it's Donut Day, I'm eating. That's really it though. I think we're just removing the label good or bad. It's like it's a donut. It's the same thing, like a bit off topic, with people with pizza. Deconstruct pizza. It's bread, sauce, with tomato sauce to boot, cheese, and meats. No pineapple. And that's it. But like you put those things together and it's bad, right? But it's like, okay, well, where does the pizza come from is what makes it quote unquote bad, right? If you order takeout pizza, it's highly processed. You don't really feel too great after. If you go and have like, we'll call it real pizza or a wood oven pizza, okay, like this is what I'm talking about. You'll feel completely different from the two of them. So like the donut thing, if I'm gonna have a donut, I'm gonna have a donut. Like I love my wife, and she's like, I want to try to make protein donuts. They're cool. She'll agree. They weren't that good. You can't like a protein cookie's not a cookie. Protein donut's not a donut. When I was in Dallas in February, went to Whole Foods, and they had what they called a donut on the shelf. I'm like, this is bullshit. What is this? It was like gluten, sugar free. I'm like, that's not a donut.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like there's
It's
not a
horse
chance.
shit.
Yeah, it's bull. Yes. I'm like, I told my buddies, I'm like, no, I'm not buying this shit. This is garbage. Find me
That's
a real
awesome.
donut shop, please. Yeah, this is nonsense. But yeah, I think it's just taking the power back from the food is the big one. I think where people they give all the power, the food has the power over me. And if you tell yourself the story, maybe it will. But like to say I can't have just one donut is wrong. I can have one. I'm good.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Going shifting gears on this one too.
Yeah.
Like this is a question that I like asking people just because I think it's just kind of interesting because I don't think many people talk about it too much. And I also kind of just zooming out, I notice people are more inclined to pay more attention to not so positive kind of perspectives. And we're kind of drawn to that negativity for the most part, which is social media, news. Like if we're not controlling the inputs, then the outputs are gonna, well, if we're not beings of will, then we're creatures of whim. And if we're not controlling the inputs, then our outputs are not going to be in our control.
Very true.
And so the question that I got for you is, and you can go in any direction you want with this one. What role does love play in what you do
As a coach,
as a person?
what I do as a person, what does
Yeah,
love
I
play?
guess. Yeah, what role? Yeah, okay, fair enough. What role in general, I suppose, is love a part of your process of existence? I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Um, if I take it from like a family perspective, if I did when I describe it to people who aren't parents, they don't really get it. And I understand because I didn't get it either. Like when I held my firstborn in my arm for the first time, like it's just everything just whoop, like it's just this change overwhelms you. But I also distinctly remember because my wife had a C-section, so I was football carrying him around in the lobby for like 20 minutes, and I could not open my arm after because it was just frozen with a 7-pounder here in my arm. I call it Papa Bear, where it's like whatever I have to get done for the people for my immediate family, like it's getting done. Whether it's like cooking for them when I'm exhausted or cleaning or I haven't had to stand up for them in any manner, but if it came down to it, it's one of those like protective natures that I just feel I want to make sure that everyone's good, and that's what I call it. To me, that's deep rooted love. Like it's protecting those around you. I do often joke with my wife about it, and maybe I'll get flack for it. But I often, because we have a dog, she's 2. I often say that I really don't like her, but I love her. And I don't really say I love her out loud, but my wife's like, "Oh, but you love her," and I'll just smile at her and not agree, but agree. Because she's stubborn as all hell. Like I've worked on training her. She needs to be professionally trained for just little things that just add up in my day too. Because I mean, as I talk, it's just me and her. She's upstairs just doing nothing right now, but she's a butt. But it's like I'm like, yeah, I love her, but sometimes I don't like her. And I think this is something that most parents that are maybe uncomfortable saying that will say about their kids, and I will too. Like sometimes I don't like them. They're rude. They're inconsiderate. They're not grateful. They scream, or especially the toddler. They're just loud. I'm like, I love you to death, man, but like right now I don't. And I won't say that to them, but in my head, I'm like, right now I don't like you. And maybe this makes people uncomfortable, but I think it's okay to share that kind of stuff because parenting is fucking hard, man. Like it's a job that nobody can really prepare you for. Nobody in my family prepared me for it. I only have one friend who had kids before me, but his kid's older, so it's a little bit different. But it's like one of those where the love comes from the actions that you do, not without question, but almost without questioning how important it is. That was a good one. That was
Yeah,
okay, I'm caffeinated. Um,
dude. I'll
and
clip that
that's
one up. Don't worry.
nice. And that's like that to me is like, I know my wife's exhaust is like, I'll do the laundry. Or, I do the cooking because she works till 6, but I want to make sure dinner's ready when they come home. Shitty day, good day doesn't matter. Like it's happening, and I can unwind when I can unwind.
Mm.
That's maybe an area of love language. Part of my love language is probably service, just because of how I was raised or how I saw my mom and how I saw my grandmother, because they were probably two of the biggest impacts for me. So, but that's probably where it comes from too.
I dig that. My love language is definitely acts of service as well. That's my go-to. And actually, you know what's funny? Speaking from the perspective of the child, there was a day that my mom did say that to me. And so I will definitely say that looking back on it, it gave me the opportunity to reflect on why she would say that in the first place. And that was very, very important for me, where it's like, oh shit. It's like there's I don't think anybody, whether the behavior is for better or for worse, I don't think anyone genuinely just wants to try and disappoint their parents.
Of course.
And I think that while I'm pretty decent with taking criticism, I think I was pretty decent even younger. But when she said that, I remember it vividly. I remember like the living room. I remember everything. She's like, you know what, Kyle? Just because I love you doesn't mean I have to like you right now. And going full circle, 2 years ago, or well, yeah, not last Christmas, the Christmas before, I was we were down doing a road trip with my parents. We were going along the Gulf of Mexico. Started down in Florida and we looped up and we went to uh Louisiana. Then we did a whole trip. They live in an RV. They're basically gypsies. And they 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 have a sick RV. Like they don't have a home base. That is their home base. So they just moved. So we just went with them, went along with them. And something that was funny, I was coming out of the RV and I just overheard my parents talking and they mentioned my name. And just jokingly, I was like, "Oh, you guys chatting about me?" And my mom was, it was awesome how it's full circle. My mom said, she's like, "Yeah, we were just talking about how much better adult Kyle is compared to young Kyle."
Oh my God.
And I'm like, you know what? I totally get it.
That's
So
progress.
it is, yeah.
Right.
That is like probably some of the most evident progress. And actually, this is a cool one too, because for the longest time, my mom or someone would ask my mom, "Oh, why is that?" And I've been in this August of 2023 will be my 12th year of being at least in the fitness industry, personal trainer, and then over to online coach. And for the longest time, my mom's friends were like, "Why don't you let Kyle train you?" And she said, "Well, karma's a bitch, and I've grounded him a lot, and I don't want to deal with that." However, now, and I think there was a very big solid pivot point that I recognize. My buddy Calvin and I were chatting about it, but there was a point, and I think it just came from a lot more maturity on my end, just more experience and just becoming wiser and just being more intentional, where I'm trying to bring myself like as like consistent consistent in all areas of my life as possible. And the reason for that is just because I'm lazy and I don't want to shift perspectives or personalities or personas or different hats. I want to decrease the amount of effort I put in that because I just don't want to put in the mental strain. And yeah, we just had a conversation. It was the longest conversation we've had. It was 3 hours. I wake up early and she wakes up early too. So we were up and it was like 5 a.m. on a Sunday and we were just chatting for 3 hours. And at the end of it, both of us were like, wow, like this that was a really good conversation, and both of us were really present. And the thing that was really cool is that, or at least I can speak for myself, is that it felt like that there was a sense of like, not like the hierarchy of mother to son, but there was like a neutrality of mutual respect kind of thing, or we just elevated our relationship a little bit. That was a really cool experience after that point. And now she's working with me and she's freaking slaying it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was adult to adult, right? Just respecting
Mm.
each other as adults, not oh, I'm your mother or things like that. Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. Yeah, thanks for like that line. Now it actually kind of like clicked in. I'm like, holy shit. Oh, that's freaking cool.
That's awesome.
Man, that's so sweet. So what is it? Let me think on this one. That's a good one. What do you think? Where do you hmm whereabouts whereabouts do you think you've improved yourself the most? I guess since we're just talking about big changes
Yeah,
throughout lives, why not?
that's funny you bring that up because I was just talking with someone about it the other day. 2019, the year before the pandemic, like I was in a business mentorship. I think it was in that. And I often look back, like I told you earlier, sometimes I won't give myself credit for how far I've come with that. Like building my own business has always been something I wanted to do and make sure it was successful. It's been 6 years in 2016. So this will be the 7th anniversary coming up. But I vividly remember slacking, just not doing shit. I had all day. Like I had some in-person clients and I had some online clients, but it wasn't to the level that I wanted, which would be where I am now. But I wasted time. Like I remember like watching movies in the middle of the day, which is cool, I guess, if I didn't have things I wanted to build and grow. We had one child, he was in daycare. I had my time to go to the gym. I did my workouts and things like that. Yeah, 2019, he would have been 3. Yeah. Time I can't keep up sometimes with all these dates and numbers. Um, I think I want to say my discipline, but honestly, like my discipline's not where I want it to be either at the same time. Um, Part of it now or the last 3 years is just I'm accountable to more people. To me, accountability is honestly one of the biggest difference makers in life across the board. Like I have clients for my business that I'm accountable to make sure that they get results that they want because that's what they're paying me for. I have to check in with them, message them, talk to them, things like that. I work in the online trainer mentorship as a success coach. I'm accountable to a roster of students there to make sure that they're progressing, they're doing well. I'm supporting them. I have my assistant who I'm accountable to because she's scheduling my email newsletter out or she's scheduling my podcast. She's doing things in the back end that I need to get done. So I need to make sure they're done for her to get her job done. And then obviously with my family, like I have to make sure I'm present, I'm providing. My wife was on mat leave up until May 2022. So yeah, it's been a year from when did she go on mat leave? She did 2-year mat leave. May 2019, I think it was. Again, I don't remember the dates, but there was a point where mat leave payments were up because in Ontario she took the 18 months, but it was November. She's like, well, I'm not going to go. Where am I going to go work now? Because we moved as well. I'm like, I don't want you to go job hunting in December. Like, well, take the end of the year, go into the spring. It's like the fact that I was able to provide for them, for the family for that many months just with my income, like to me, that was the biggest deal because for many, many years of me struggling and being selfish, like my business wasn't doing well. And I worked at another job, but my wife never really gave me shit for it because she was the breadwinner for a long time. So we relied a little bit more on her. Now it's like, well, I can take the reins if I need to. And like, I let her take the 6 months and figure stuff out. And we had it under control. So I don't know if it's my emotional maturity, even then, depends on the day. I think I'm just more clear on what I want in life. Like clarity is helpful. Like I've always say, oh, I want to make this amount or I want to be this, but like until you start doing the work to get there and like really seeing what it looks like, putting numbers down on paper, reading about it, what does it take to get there, deconstruct the goal, That was really a difference maker for me too. And just showing up. I have it on my whiteboard if you're watching it on YouTube. It's been on my whiteboard since we moved here in 2021. Show up. Like if you're having a bad day, I still have to show up. Like I still have the 6 hats a day I wear every day. And some days one hat will stay on longer than the others, but they're still there. So that's probably it. It's the mentality of I have work to do because I want to achieve certain things in life. And sometimes they're just going to show up. Sometimes I'm going to Superman the hell out of it. Sometimes it's going to be terrible, but I got to show up and do it anyway.
Yeah, I like that, dude. Man, what a fun conversation, dude.
It's tough, man. You ask good questions. I like it.
Thanks, dude. I also love the I love the synchronicity of the awesome stories you're bringing to the table. Like the one with the mom earlier today, the one that you just talked about. Like everything seems to be all the stories that you told are just like very close knit. So I think it's cool that you're able to bring it up and talk about it. It's like, holy shit, we're just timed it out really well.
Yeah,
Just dropping knowledge bombs in fire. Well, my man, there's not a question that immediately popped up, so that's a good sign. Awesome. So with that, I think I got 2 questions left for you, my man.
Here we go.
But before we get into that, of course, where can people find you?
Yeah, Strong John Fitness on Instagram. John has no H in it. I know I'm weird. StrongJohnFitness.com and Strong John Fitness podcast. Those are the main 3 where you find me.
Beautiful. Strong John Fitness. Sweet.
Across the board.
So, my friend, got the good ones. One's kind of dark. One's a little bit more lighthearted.
Okay.
So going, I like to warn people. It's always nice. So setting the stage, it's the end of your days. You're on your deathbed. You have one piece of advice that you could pass on to the people around you. What is that piece of advice?
Don't give up on yourself. It sounds so corny when you say it out loud, but it's honestly so true. Like whether fitness, and often I relate my fitness journey and my business journey because there's some similarities in building a business and achieving fitness goals also have some similarities, but I think nobody's going to do the work for you. Nobody's going to do the work for you. And I know that scares some people, and I know it's tough taking more responsibility on when you're already full of responsibilities. Like your plates are all full. I had someone yesterday call it a platter because it's so damn big. Right. But again, no, if you want to achieve something, you have to do it, and you can't quit. That's got to be it.
I love that. So you mentioned earlier we were talking about seasons. So on that one, the second question, the final question, the best version of John, the strongest John. Hey.
Nice.
The best version of you, the strongest John is sitting right next to you. What piece of advice does he have for this season of your life?
Shit. Be more disciplined with your actions. Like, I want to say stick to the script, but again, it's more just, yeah, I mean, just there is a plan laid out for you. You just got to execute and stop getting distracted. Fuck, that's a good question. You'll be fired up over here, man. I love that.
Woo!
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
That is awesome. Yeah, you can steal it because you have a podcast as well, don't you? Yeah. Where can people find your podcast?
Yeah, Strong John Fitness podcast is available pretty much everywhere podcasts are available. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google, all the fun stuff.
I didn't know Stitcher was an option.
I think Stitcher. I don't pay attention to ratings. I just like making the show.
Yeah. So I usually just, when I go to my thingy, the dashboard pops up numbers, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. The numbers are like one more than it was before.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
People are
awesome.
listening to this. Cool. I'm good. Let's keep making more. That's really it for me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my friends, I hope that that was a very insightful conversation for you. I hope that there are some takeaways. And that's all I got for you for today's episode. So if you loved today's episode, please do me a favor right now. Share it on your Instagram stories and tag me with my handle at DapperDudeKyle, along with at StrongJohnFitness without an H, because John's weird. That is one way that we grow. And until next time, be kind. And I hope your day treats you as good as you look.